Hello and welcome to Views from the Market, mid-market private equity and M&A in Canada. My name is Mario Nigro and I'm a partner in the private equity and M&A group at Stikeman, Elliott. For today's podcast, I'd like to welcome our guest, Ugo Dionne, the president of the M&A Club of Canada. Ugo, thank you for joining us and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
We always start our podcast by asking our special guests to tell us a little bit about themselves. Ugo, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and about the M&A Club of Canada.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. So my path to M&A is not a linear path. I started as a lawyer at BCF. It was a starting law firm just being established. And so very early on, I was involved in the firm's development of marketing. And so many things were being asked of me as a young lawyer that I kind of fell in love with the business building side of things more than of the practice of law itself. So I realized that maybe I should be an entrepreneur. And after 4 years, I decided to leave the practice of law and bought the first business. So I became an entrepreneur through acquisition in 1998. And I guess that was before it was actually a thing, before the expression had been coined as, ETA, at least for my part. So I bought a first business with no real idea in mind to where I was going with this and when I would exit, and did that for a little over 20 years. So my M&A experience, my connection with that industry is more of someone that has done it for himself, of buying and selling businesses and really loving the whole process, the whole human financing and legal process around it. And when I sold my last business in 2022, I joined the M&A Club because I thought, if I'm going to help entrepreneurs buy and sell businesses, this is where I should be. This is where I should go to meet people who are from this industry. And so in October of 2024, I took over the operations of the M&A Club, which is one of the largest M&A networking organizations in Canada. We now have 20 chapters across the country who meet on a monthly basis. We connect all the M&A professionals, private equity and finance professionals. So there are no entrepreneurs that come to our meeting. It's really strictly for the service providers. And that allows to have a great conversation around these roundtables that we organize every month. People can exchange deal opportunities, share industry trends, and learn and connect together. And so we've launched also an academy to connect with the entrepreneurs via programs like Growth by Acquisition, Governance M&A, Exit Planning, and a new initiative with McGill University for ETA training that will be launched next fall.
Let me ask you, the unique part about the M&A Club is it really focuses on bringing together service providers to talk about M&A. And then curious what your experience has been in terms of what you've seen and what the club really brings out in terms of those conversations. I know you do M&A lunch and learns, you do networking opportunities. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit more about the kind of secret sauce of the M&A Club.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is one, and people have to experience it to understand it. But what most people tell us is like, well, how is it interesting for service providers only to meet on a monthly basis? Well, because the conversation changes when you only have service providers. When you have the professionals making deals, the conversation gets technical. We can talk about trends in the industry. We can talk about the tax issues, stuff that really matters at the heart of transactions. And so that's what people like, to be with like-minded peers in these groups. And we do this 150 times a year across all chapters. And then there's always this wonderful part of our meetings is the roundtable, where everybody gets to talk. Everybody gets to say who they are, what they do, and what do they bring to the table? How can we help them? What deals are they working on that they would need someone to connect with in the group? And that's what I think makes it very, very special. We live at an age of AI where people can make lists and connections, 10,000 connections in 10 minutes with an AI agent. There in the meetings, you're meeting real people from your industry locally. And that's how you build relationships and that's how you build trust. And so I think that's a magic sauce of the club.
And if you could tell us a little bit about the nature of the attendees, who tends to come to your events? Who are the M&A providers that attend?
So we have anybody from the single practitioner to the large banks and law firms and accounting firms. And that's what I like about the club, about this public that comes to every meeting, because not everybody is suited to make every deal. It's a market that's very fragmented and people do deals in different sizes with different hourly rates, with different approaches and different level of connections. So by having everyone in the room talking to each other, that's how you make sure that when there's a deal that comes your way, you really know who to work with and who to refer some work to, because every deal is different. So that's what makes it special.
I know, Ugo, from just seeing the M&A Club in the marketplace, you do focused lunches where you bring in speakers, you bring in topics. Can I ask you, if you look at the community that you've developed and created through the M&A Club, what are some of the key trends or topics that you notice keep coming up or people keep focusing on or the community seems to be laser interested in?
There's really two things I think that comes up the most. First is how do we get business owners to start preparing for exits much earlier than they actually are. So that's really, really the key. I don't think anybody has a magic wand to make that happen, unfortunately, but it makes the deal so much more complicated. And they're leaving money on the table by not getting ready ahead of time. So that's one of the things we hear a lot. And the second thing is uncertainty. And that uncertainty has had different labels in the last years. First, it was COVID, then it was the interest rates, then the tariffs came along. And now we have all these geopolitical uncertainties, that makes deals harder. And so that's what we hear a lot. And who bears the weight of that? Well, it's most of the time the seller. If they're not fully ready for an exit, if they haven't prepared properly for the due diligence, that process will be longer and they'll probably carry more weight on their shoulders, whether it be through a balance of sale or a longer earnout, a longer transition period. So unfortunately, that's what we're seeing. But the will to make deals is still there, but it just changes how the deals actually happen.
When you look at the providers and topics of conversation, do you get any overarching themes about M&A in Canada when you look at the table and what people are talking about? Is there anything in particular you notice in terms of Canadian M&A from your conversations with, obviously these are colleagues and others? Is there anything you're seeing that you would say these are defining characteristics of Canadian M&A?
Certainly the challenge for the economy with all the business transfers happening in the next 10 to 15 years. And I know it's been almost 10 years or 15 years since we've been waiting for this wave of transfers and it has yet to happen. But I think now the demographics is very clear that this is going to happen. And there's many players out there trying to profit from this in the right way. But we have a lot of searchers. I've never seen so many searchers out there. They're qualified, they're well-funded, and they're willing to drop their day jobs with pension funds, and they're willing to buy businesses and take on this challenge. So this is really something that we're seeing in the economy right now that is surprising. But I don't think everybody is suited to be an entrepreneur, to make an entrepreneurship through acquisition process. So, but there's a lot of people out there looking and searching. So there's a lot of competition for the right targets.
I know, Ugo, you mentioned obviously the growth of these kind of search funds and independent sponsors. We're obviously seeing them in our practice too. They just keep growing. Are you seeing one of the things that's unique about the M&A Club is it's not just regional, it's become Canada-wide. Are you seeing any regional trends? Anything in particular that you would say you see more of in whether it's Quebec or Ontario or Eastern Canada or Western Canada? Any regional trends that you see as the club continues to grow and expand itself across the country?
No, I can't say there's anything specific province to province. It's pretty much the demographics and the economy Canada-wide is quite similar. So on that level, I wouldn't be an expert on this subject and be able to pinpoint something that's different in certain provinces compared to others.
Now, I don't want you to give up the secret sauce. The M&A Club's been a great success story. It started in Montreal and it's now across the country. Where do you go from here? Where do you think in terms of supporting the M&A community will go and kind of really being a reference source for the M&A community in Canada, but you don't have to give up the secret sauce. But where do you want to go with the M&A Club? Because, you've done a great job of growing this across the country. And look, there's clearly a demand for it. People are interested in it. So clearly you're seeing something on the ground that people want. I'm curious where you go from here in terms of building out the M&A community in Canada.
Well, we have to stay focused on that secret sauce. And, it's really simple. The secret sauce is you get people in the room that have common interest and you allow them time to talk and get to know each other. And so we're trying to stay away from the large events of 200-300 people, cocktails, which brings more shallow conversations. So we try to stay curated in small groups. That's the secret sauce. If I look at the map of Canada, there's holes in where we have chapters. So I'm looking at Winnipeg and Halifax, and I'd love to have chapters opening there before the end of the year. We have Edmonton launching very soon. And then where we're taking it to geographically, New York, London, and Paris would be places where we're having discussions right now for people to launch chapters there. And it would be wonderful for the local communities in these cities to connect, but also to have an easier way to communicate and connect also with these professionals in those cities to facilitate cross-border transactions. And in terms of products, what we've seen is that there's a lack of training, there's a lack of knowledge in the industry, whether it be for service providers or for the entrepreneurs. So that's why we came up with the Academy. The Academy right now is focusing on two different solutions. One is a training for growth by acquisition. So we're looking at businesses that are established, that have at least $10 million in sales. And we're looking for entrepreneurs looking to learn how to grow by acquisition. So, and in these trainings are being given for 3 days by service providers, by professionals from the industry. And this is something that I think can be very important, because when you already own a business, you are well positioned to make acquisitions and you know how to run a business already. So we're looking forward to training these people. And the first cohort is being given right now in Montreal. And surprisingly, the sales size of the businesses that have, the entrepreneurs that have registered for these trainings is over $30 million in sales a year. So we were not expecting to have businesses that large willing to spend 3 days, to learn about growth by acquisition. So it's a pleasantly surprised, I have to say, on this topic. And for the ones searching and looking to buy a business, we've partnered with the Dobson Center for Entrepreneurship with McGill University, and we're launching our first cohort in September to train these searchers and these people willing to take on that challenge of finding, buying, and then transforming and growing an existing business.
I'm assuming these programs obviously right now are in Montreal, but your goal is to expand them across Canada. Is that the idea?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So once it's been tested and once we're comfortable with the solution we bring to the market, then Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver and Ottawa will be the cities where our partners that are national will be able to help us give these trainings to the entrepreneurs locally.
We always ask our guests for their perspective on kind of trends and where they see the market going and, things that they see coming down the kind of pipeline. In your case, you've already given us some, obviously you're seeing a lot of the search funds and the growth of the kind of entrepreneurship through acquisition. And you mentioned, I think it's fascinating, the kind of educational programs for business owners to focus on growth. Any other trends you're seeing from your conversations from the community that people kind of say to you, Ugo, these are trends for the marketplace that you are focused on, that you are interested in?
I think people need to repeat the message to business owners that exit planning is business planning. And it's not a weakness to start talking about an eventual exit, because you never know when it's going to happen. People think, oh, well, that's going to happen in my later years, but it's not always the case. Sometimes you can have an unsolicited offer and you have to be ready at all times for that, or then life can get in your way and you could be surprised and have to exit earlier. So talking about that, not as a weakness for the entrepreneur, but as a sign of proper planning, I think is something that we need, all of us in the market, to be able to address with our clients or with business owners and say, look, you will benefit tremendously from this, and your team, your employees, your clients, and anybody you do business with will also be reassured to know that there's a plan for an eventual exit whenever that happens. So I think that's the trend we have to take on in the industry.
I want to go back to a trend you mentioned earlier, uncertainty, and get your sense of, is your sense, obviously the tariffs being the big one that's really kind of slowed us down in the last year. Do you get a sense from your members that it has kind of tempered M&A or has had an impact? Is the sense from the community that people are still active, or is the sense that we have to wait till the tariffs are done before we really kind of can get beyond this period and, your point, get to a period of more certainty?
Well, I think the uncertainty is there to stay and deals need to happen. So people cannot stay idle. So they will be making deals. And again, the one that will be favored are the ones that are well prepared. The companies that are strong, those are really getting the good share of the deal and the better deals because of their position in the market. So, and again, those who are not will pay a certain price on a tougher due diligence and on a deal that might be interesting at the end of the day, but you will have more responsibility in making the deal a success. So because the deal will happen, but you'll probably have to stay a little longer and be a little more involved in the earn-outs or in the balance of sale to make things happen for yourself. That's how uncertainty, I think, plays out for the entrepreneurs right now.
If someone is interested in engaging with the M&A Club or getting involved, is it you go to the website, find out what immediately, can you tell us how somebody could get engaged with the M&A Club if they want to become involved?
Absolutely. Visit the website, send us an email or give us a call, and we'll introduce you to our chapter presidents. In every chapter, we have 1 or 2 chapter presidents who run the club. And that's the best way to get involved locally in your community and start attending the meetings. I always say it's like joining a gym. You join the gym and you don't go, not much is going to happen. So if you join the club and you get involved and you take advantage of it, things will start building in your network very quickly.
And just to confirm, anybody involved with M&A, there's no preference for any one or another. It's completely open to anyone involved, anybody who's interested in M&A.
Absolutely. For anybody who's a service provider in M&A. So that's really our criteria. So we don't welcome, the business owners or the people looking to buy a business. We don't have in the membership and that's what makes it so special, is because we only have the service providers. So, but if you're working in the space of making deals happen, then you qualify, to be a member of the club.
Ugo, thank you for joining us. It's great to hear about you and the success of the M&A Club, and I hope it continues to grow because we need more M&A for all of us. So thank you for all that you do, and congratulations on the success of the M&A Club and its future success.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to Views from the Market. Stay updated with the latest episodes by subscribing wherever you find your podcasts or visiting stikeman.com/viewsfromthemarket.